University on year-end updates today. I hope everyone has had a good week, and I'm going to start here with a little bit of a slide presentation, and very short. It's 2 whole slides. And then we're going to jump right into Financial Edge and talk about year-end updates and just some basic Financial Edge housekeeping that needs to be done at the end of every year. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and jump to my agenda here. We're going to talk about year-end updates. I'm actually going to talk about specifically in payroll, creating 2018 schedule, updating the software, which the release date for the year-end tax tables or for the 2018 tax tables has been released, and they're saying it'll be ready December 22nd. Creating new taxes, which we want to make sure we do after we've updated the tax tables. Believe me, I've made that mistake myself in the past. And some of the things we want to talk about with that is making sure that we include the same GL distribution, etc. So I don't think today's meeting, we may go a full 30 minutes, kind of depending on questions, but some of these tasks are pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in with creating 2018 schedule. Minimize this, bring up my Financial Edge. So when I talk about creating schedules, I'm generally speaking specifically about payroll. But there is one year-end step, and some of you may have already come across it. It tends to happen more with your fiscal year as opposed to the calendar year, but it's always a good time to go over it. It's in the general ledger in configuration. When you're at the end of a fiscal year, you always want to come and add a year. What will happen is, and generally happens a couple of weeks before the end of your fiscal year, if you're trying to put something into the system with a date in the future, like if your fiscal year is a calendar year and you're trying to put in an invoice with a date of January 2nd, it's not going to allow you to do it. It'll give you an error. When you get that error, you just want to come to General Ledger Configuration and add a new fiscal year. It's really as simple as that. I use the same ID and description year after year. And I'll actually go ahead and put in 2020 here. And then you can simply just click the autocomplete. It will complete the months all the way down. Some people have a 13th period that they use for audit adjustments. If that's the case, you do want to look at those dates at the bottom, make sure that that 13th period is the date that you want, and then save and close. Really that simple. So that's adding a new fiscal year to your system. When we come to the end of the year from a payroll perspective, we often need to update our schedule. In your payroll module, under configuration, there's a lot of stuff, right? The big one that we want to update is schedules. You'll notice here I'm going to use my semi-monthly schedule as an example. There's 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, but there's no 18. So what I need to do is I can open this schedule and I can copy it. If I copy it, then I'm going to change the year. I'm going to leave the description, leave the schedule ID the same. This is really important. Your pay frequency, I'm going to leave all of that the same. Notice here, it changed the start on date. Everything else should be the same. I'm going to save and close. Let's update the grid. Now I have a 2018 schedule. And actually, I'm going to take that back. It actually did something I didn't want it to do. So hang on there one second. Let's make this. There we go. Oh, good. That makes me happy. Okay. So adding a new schedule, and you may have multiple schedules, semi-monthly, weekly. You can create a new schedule. Set your days, update your grid. Probably going to change this to weekly. I'm going to have 52 periods. Sometimes you may have, generally if you're doing weekly, 52 is a safe number. When it starts, hours per day, days per week, and every week on, I'm going to leave that one as Friday. That's interesting. Let's delete that one. There we go. And now I have a 2018 weekly schedule. As long as you update your schedule here in configuration, this is one of the few times you do not have to push this information out to the employee record, okay? It's actually going to look at the configuration and it will roll forward as long as you have the same schedule ID. So this is always a year-end task, making sure you've got a schedule for the coming year for each of your schedule IDs. Here. So create 2018 schedules. The next one is pretty straightforward. Financial Edge, or Blackbaud I should say, at the end of every year releases a software update. And you can contact, this is a pretty straightforward, it's actually called a patch. You need to have administrator rights. If you are updating Financial Edge, you want to make sure that you're doing it on the server. You can actually, Zobrio offers assistance with this as part of our year-end processing packages. That you go out to the blackbaud.com website. So much fun. See if I can get there here. Oh, there it is. Gotta log in. And then under support, downloads. You won't have this many options. You'll just have the Financial Edge. Notice it's on patch 21. Patch 22 is being released on the 22nd. And you'll come down here and you'll download the patch. When you download the patch and you run it, remember, administrator rights on your server, it'll update Financial Edge for you. Once that patch has been installed, then you want to go and create your new tax table. Like I said, I learned that one the hard way years ago because I wanted to get all this year-end work done early. Mistake. To update your tax tables, you stay in configuration, but instead of schedule, you come to taxes. I have a couple of tips and tricks on this one. To be honest, I always go through the prior year and I grab screenshots. I use this little program called the snipping tool, and I grab screenshots of my setup. This particular tab is pretty straightforward. I know I'm going to be doing the withholding tax. I'm going to change my effective date to 1/1/18. But this part, what your GL distribution is for each of these, and both sides, the debit and the credit, unfortunately, there's no way to just copy a tax and change the year. It just doesn't work that way. So when you go to create a new tax, you've got to go to each one of these and reset up your GL distribution. Okay, so if I come here to the employer tax in mine, notice this is only the credit side. I've got to come up here, I've got to click debit, and I've got to put in my debit side. And in this situation, my credit side goes to a specific account number. My debit side goes to a distribution with this account code. So this is why the very first thing I recommend to all my clients is go through last year's tax setup, grab your screenshots, print them out. It really is the easiest thing. That way you're not flipping back and forth between screens. You've got everything right there in front of you, and you can just flip through the tabs. You can either flip through the tabs and set up your GL distribution, or you can just go to GL distribution on any one tab and just go down the list. Okay. The other thing you're going to have to do, and it always makes me laugh, is you will have to put in a pay stub ID. So if I'm actually going to go do a new tax, and I'm going to call it federal tax, always use the same description. Let's do federal withholding tax. If you have a vendor, and then this was what I was talking about, you have to actually go pick your pay stub ID. Anytime you see a blue box, it's a required field. And the thing is they don't tell you in any way, shape, or form that all of these tabs require that box. Okay, so just know when you're setting up your tax, except for the railroad tax, it's the only one. All the others you have to go through and actually find from your table the pay stub ID that represents that tax. So again, another reason why I love those screenshots. I can literally copy the information from year to year from a pay stub ID and GL distribution perspective. Okay. Once I've done all that, it really is as simple as save and close. If you have your system set up to generate invoices, and this part will be completed, I'll actually show you here on I'm not going to save that one. So here they've set up the Department of Treasury, IRS. If it's set up here in the tax settings, when you are here in payroll processing and you are creating AP invoices for payroll liabilities, that is the vendor that it'll look to set up that invoice. So that's just a little bit of information about how the pieces are connected. So number one, we talked about setting up schedules. Number two, we've talked about setting up taxes. And again, we want to make sure that we do this tax setup after you've done the software update. If I go and add a 2018 tax in here today, it's going to give me the 2017 tax table. Okay. The other thing that's a little fun about Financial Edge, and I don't know why, all of the taxes are up here in this little bitty box. So this is just your federal tax. You'll want to come up here and set up your state taxes as well. This button no longer functions. Just a heads up, it looks like it functions, it doesn't. You have to go and install that patch. I told you we'd go through this year-end updates pretty quickly. So number one, create 2018 schedules, both for if you're on a calendar fiscal year, you definitely want to do that fiscal year setup, but certainly for your payroll, for each of your pay type, for each of your schedule IDs. You will also want to update your software. Like I said, the release date is December 22nd. And so you have a couple of, kind of depends on where you are in your processing or how your month is going. Always makes me a little nervous that they release it that time of year, but we're here to help if you guys need that. That's actually my last slide. Go ahead and create your new taxes after you've done the software update, including that GL distribution. And like I said, I recommend making screenshots of the prior year. It just makes your life easier. And then last but not least, if you've attended any of the other Zobrio University sessions that I have put together over the last couple of weeks, I always create calendar reminders in my Outlook calendar, either for myself or for my staff. Like if I have somebody that is their task, just set it up, put it on their calendar that way, because it's a once a year housekeeping reminder. All of that being said, if you have any questions or you're uncertain, for example, maybe updating software is not your thing, you may have heard from Matt at this point already. If not, he is the person to contact if you're interested in working with myself or one of the other Zobrio consultants to assist in any of your year-end processing, whether it's updating your software, helping with 1099, W-2s, or both. So Matt is definitely our go-to person if you would like our assistance with that come January. And with that, I will open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions about what we talked about today? Okay, well, I knew this would be a short session. If questions will usually get us to the full 30-minute mark, but if nobody has any questions, I hope everybody has a good afternoon, and I look forward to working with some or all of you in the future. Have a good afternoon, everybody.